Basketball fans in Edmonton were excited at the recent release of information that professional basketball was coming back to our city. And joining us right now is the CEO of the newly announced Canadian Elite Basketball League, Mike Morreale. Mike, good morning.
Good morning, Paul. How you doing?
Doing great. Thanks for making time. Once again, I've done this several times today. I don't take time zones into account, but thanks for joining us, Mike.
Oh, thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
So, Mike, pro ball, you're a football guy. What drew you to the CEBL?
Well, it's interesting. The whole, concept would have come, about a year and a half ago, maybe a little bit more, when I ran into our founder, Richard Petco, through another kind of mutual relationship. And we got to talking, and he knew my background, and we were chatting a bit about basketball in this country because of his involvement with basketball. And we felt like there was something missing. And he is a European background, so he's very familiar with the international basketball and what's played in Europe and overseas and China, Australia, and what have you. And he's always wondered why, in a country of Canada's size and wealth and demographics, why we couldn't have something similar here. So that initiated the conversation. Then we started getting a little deeper as to, why things have failed previously. And then we started to meet more people. And then we realized that, if we had a chance to do this, he asked my interest in jumping on board and kind of running the show. And I said, I'm happy to do it, but boy, this is going to be a big endeavor, and it's going to cost a lot of money, and it's going to take some time. But if we get the right people involved, I think we have something here. Times have changed a little bit. The surge in popularity of basketball is huge. And I think there's a desire for fans across the country, especially basketball fans, to want to see something. And in beyond that, we really want to create a fan experience around the basketball game so everyone can enjoy it.
Mike, as you say, over the past few years, the surge of popularity in basketball across the country is undeniable, even though I sometimes feel in the hockey community there still is denial taking place. But the reality is, among new Canadians, certainly, along with soccer, basketball is the most popular sport. Among young people, basketball is a higher participation sport than hockey. What do you think you can do differently with the CBL? And Grant, I completely understand the fan experience, but what do you think is going to separate you from the history? Do you think the history is so far behind that really doesn't carry forward because so many of the new fans are young people who really don't know much or had never had any experience with that?
I totally agree to your last point there. I think there is history, and you have to respect the history as to why things perhaps didn't go as smoothly as possible, or also where those things worked very well. But at the same time, you got to realize that there's not a lot of recent history. There's some pretty distant memories, but they're still hanging on with our vintage and maybe a little bit older. So you kind of reflect on it, but again, you have to move forward. There's no looking back when you're doing this. And then you start to say, okay, if I'm running a sports organization, let's forget about the game that's going to take place on the court or on the field or on the ice. What do you have to do to assemble the proper team to get the right venues and the right locations and the right communities that, you think you can support it, that have a lot of room to grow, and that would welcome something new. And then you throw in, okay, it's going to be basketball. And then you start ticking all these other boxes because it is, the fastest growing sport. And there's, come summertime, there's nets everywhere and guys and girls picking up the basketball, shooting hoops. And if you think of the participation rates, it's kind of skewed because, on a hockey team or a football team or a soccer team, I mean, you're talking about many, many more competitors on the field at the same time. In basketball, you're limited to 5-on-5 and then a bench of maybe another 5 or 6 more. So when you think about all the people that are playing, that's multiple teams participating. So you respect the past, but you also look towards the future and say, okay, what can we do to make this, a really, really good product?
Hey, Mike, Eric Fawcett here. Talent is so important to a new league like this. So I was just curious, what kind of talent do you think the league will be kind of identifying and targeting to play in the league? And also, what would be the difference in targeting Canadian talent and targeting American talent, for example?
Right. Good question. So, as you probably know, outside of the NBA, those are the top 500 basketball players slash athletes in the world. So, it's very limited, and there's not a lot of place to go, locally. So, a lot of these players that are playing now overseas, internationally, there's thousands and thousands of them, and all of them, love the game of basketball and are playing for that reason, some for the hopes of going on to the next level, some because they want to continue their careers and experience different countries and so on and so forth. So there's a little bit of that, in terms of the international seasons wrapping up or is wrapped up for the most part. The spring, summer tends to be a bit of a slower time internationally. So we're hoping that'll allow itself and encourage some of the international players to want to come up to Canada to play and get paid to play in Canada and get to enjoy our country for that period of time. But more importantly, try to bring back some of those national grown products that are playing overseas that may not come home on a regular basis in the summer because they're enjoying where they are. Maybe they want to hang out and vacation. And if they do come home, there's not a lot of available basketball, certainly to be compensated appropriately. So it's a bit of a risk for them. So we want to provide that avenue. And then we want to encourage, the youth sports athletes that are playing basketball to really find us as the next step of the revolution in the sport. And that's the legacy play of what we're trying to do, of really keeping our top Canadian players in the country. And certainly we want to stop them from going anywhere else, but we want to give them an opportunity to play at home as well.
The Basketball Show, joined by Mike Morreale, CEO of the newly announced Canadian Elite Basketball League. Mike, take me 5 years from now. What do you want the CEBL to look like?
Good question. I think we envision at the very most a 12-team league spread across the country, hopefully from coast to coast. We see a lot of community engagement, a lot of basketball development, a lot of legacy plays into action, and a bit of a cult following amongst basketball people. We're not the NBA. We don't want to be compared to the NBA. The NBA in this country is very limited. It's limited to Toronto and very Ontario-centric. So we know there's a desire outside of that to experience good professional basketball, which is what we want to provide. And we want to have, sellout crowds, and we want to have, great TV ratings, and we want to be something to be, desired to if you're an athlete. But most importantly, we want the fans and basketball community rally behind us and really create that really good foundation for the next set of basketball players to develop.
Mike, we wish you all success. I know I speak for all Edmontonians who love the game that we're excited about this announcement. Everybody is, I think, anxious to see the details as they unfold. And so we look forward to you being part of our community with the sport of basketball in the very near future.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate the way that Edmonton and the community has really rallied around this, and the people at the Expo Center, Pauline and her group have been fantastic, and economic development's been great. We took the approach that we're not going to walk in with our hands out asking for anything. We're going to bring a really good brand of basketball and a really good fan experience for the local communities, and we'll prove ourselves first. And I think that's the best thing we can do. So thank you for welcoming us with open arms, and I look forward to it a year from now.